Most people think the difficult people are the problem, but usually the real problem is that nobody teaches you how to handle them correctly, whether it's coworkers, family members, clients, or toxic friends. One wrong reaction can completely drain your energy. And here's the thing that nobody talks about. Every time you react instead of respond, you hand that person your power. You walk away exhausted and they feel like nothing has happened. That's not fair. And that ends today. In this video, I am going to show you the psychology behind difficult people and the exact ways to deal with them without becoming miserable yourself. Now stay with me because the last point is the one that most people never figure out. And it's probably the most important thing I am going to share. Point number one, understand why they're difficult. The first thing you need to understand about difficult people is this. Every human being you will ever meet is programmed. They're conditioned. And what you see in front of you right now is the end result of that conditioning process. Most people never stop and ask what it actually took to make this person difficult. And almost always the answer is the same. Unattended pain, absorbed behavior patterns from their family of origin, a survival mechanism that never got updated. See, when a person is operating in survival mode, you're not really dealing with them, you're dealing with their programming. You are watching automated habitual behavior that was built long before you ever showed up. And that behavior has nothing to do with you. Now here's something I want you to hold on to because it matters. There are actually two different types of difficult people. The first one is the person who's difficult because they are hurting. They are unconscious. They are reactive. They are running an old pattern and they probably do not even know it. Give these people the benefit of the doubt. If someone is being difficult, they're more likely in some kind of pain. The second type is different. These are the people with what I would call an aberrant psychology. They are not difficult because they're hurting. They're difficult because that is their program. They operate in ways that are self-serving by default. Consciously or not, their behavior bends towards what benefits them, regardless of the cost to you. These are not the same as the first type, and you cannot handle them in the same way. But here's the thing that ties both types together. When you understand that every person is running a program that they did not consciously choose, something shifts. You stop making it personal and you see people more clearly. And some of the most difficult people in your life will end up being your greatest teachers about human nature. Not because they were easy, but because they were not. Point number two, stop trying to change them. Now here's where most people make their biggest mistake with difficult people. They try to change them. And I understand the impulse. If this person would just see reason, if they would just adjust their behavior, if they would just meet me halfway, everything would be fine. But here's what actually is happening when you want someone to change. You send them a signal, and that signal says that you are not enough. You could be better. I expect more from you, and people feel that. They might not be able to articulate it, but they feel that judgment underneath the request. And when a person feels judged, they do not open up. They shut down. They get defensive, more difficult, more entrenched in the exact behavior that you want them to move away from. So here's the alternative, complete acceptance. I know that sounds counterintuitive, so stay with me. Acceptance does not mean you approve of their behavior. Acceptance does not mean that you're a doormat. Acceptance means that you stop resisting who they are right now. And when you stop resisting, your entire energy towards that person shifts. And they feel the shift too. I learned this one in one of the most personal places you can learn anything, parenting. I have a Gen Z child, and if you're the parent of a young person today, you know there's a whole landscape of identities and labels and ways of seeing the world that can feel completely foreign to you. I had a choice. I could spend my energy wanting my child to be different, or I could just love them. Unconditional love. No agenda, no resistance, just complete acceptance of who they are right now. And what I found is that love is a force that most people dramatically underestimate. When someone feels genuinely accepted by you, not managed, not tolerated, not a project to fix, something in them relaxes. Now here's a practical tool I want to give you. One word, perfect. When you encounter a difficult person, say it to yourself, perfect. Not sarcastically, but as a genuine act of acceptance. It might feel like a joke at first, and that is fine, but what that word does is it short circuits the resistance response in you. It stops the villainizing cycle before it starts. And here's why that matters more than you think. Every time you villainize someone, every time you pile judgment on top of judgment, that bias becomes a contagion. It infects every interaction you have with that person going forward. Pretty soon you don't even want to go to work because you know they're going to be there. They're living rent-free in your head, taking up space, draining your energy long after the interaction is over. Complete acceptance ends that cycle, not for their sake, for yours. Point number 3, emotional regulation. Everybody's talking about it, not everybody is mastering it, and here's why. We are addicted to our emotional patterns, and most of us do not even know it. Every time you react with anger, with frustration, with anxiety, your body releases a hormonal cocktail that over time becomes something that you unconsciously crave. You do not just have a temper, you're chemically hooked to the feeling of having the temper. That is not a character flaw, that is biology. But biology can be rewired, and the fastest, most accessible tool you have to start that rewiring process is one that you carry with you everywhere you go, your breath. Breath awareness is where emotional regulation begins, because your breath is always happening in the present moment. When you are in the present moment, you cannot be hijacked by the story your mind is running about the difficult person. And here's what you do. When you feel that charge rising, that heat, that tightness, that impulse to react, you breathe. Start with your belly. Fill it first, then expand all the way up to your lungs, then blow it out slowly. If you want more structure, try box breathing. It's what the Navy SEALs use under live fire. 5 seconds in, hold it for 5 seconds, 5 seconds out, hold it for 5 seconds, repeat. But my personal favorite is heart-brain coherence from the Heart Math Institute. You breathe into your heart center, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, and while you do that, you deliberately think about something or someone you love. You're no longer operating from a threat, you are operating from choice. Now here's the most important thing I am going to say about all these tools. You have to practice them when you do not need them. Because if you wait until you stand in front of a difficult person and try and remember how to breathe, it's too late. Your nervous system is already fired up and your access to these tools is compromised. Practice them in the morning walk. Practice them in your car. Practice them before a meeting that you know is going to be tense. Because when you can regulate your emotional state, something remarkable happens. Difficult people stop looking so difficult. They're just people running their program. And you are no longer running yours on autopilot. That is the difference between you reacting and responding. And that difference will change every hard relationship in your life. Point number 4, set boundaries with diplomacy. Let me say something that might surprise you coming from a sales trainer. Boldness is not optional. In sales, we call it assertiveness. In life, it works exactly the same way. Because here's what I see constantly when I work with people. They fall into one of 2 camps. The first one is the non-confrontational person, the one who says nothing, who swallows it, who smiles on the outside while there's complete civil unrest happening on the inside. They're being polite in public and quietly furious in private. We have a word for that, a doormat. The second camp is the person who's always in somebody's face. Every perceived slight becomes a confrontation. Every boundary is enforced with aggression. They are not afraid to speak up. They just do not know how to do it without blowing the room up. Neither one works. You want to develop the ability to be confrontational with the highest level of diplomacy. That means you say the hard thing, you draw the line, you do not swallow it, you do not explode, you deliver it in a way that the other person can actually receive it. Because a boundary that gets set with so much anger that the other person shuts down, that's not an effective boundary. That's just venting. An effective boundary is calm, clear, and direct. It sounds something like this. That doesn't work for me. I'm not willing to continue this conversation right now. Here's what I need from you going forward. Simple, clean, no aggression, no apology. Now here's the thing about difficult conversations that people do not talk about. They do not always happen on your schedule. Sometimes you can prepare for them. Sometimes they just show up. That is exactly why you want to practice a skill before you need it. Because the person who can walk into an unexpected, difficult conversation, stay regulated, say the hard thing with dignity, and walk away without a grudge, that person's not just good at dealing with difficult people, that person is a leader. And that is what we are building here. Point number 5, protect your energy. I've been teaching this concept for years, and it has been evolving. First, I taught it as the person with the most energy wins. And then I started teaching that you always want to be the most self-assured person in the room. And now I'm teaching that you always want to have the highest coherence in the room. Because when you're in a state of heart-brain coherence, when your heart and your mind are synchronized, when you are breathing deliberately and focusing in something that you genuinely love, you generate a quality of energy that has a measurable effect on the people around you. High coherence pulls other people up towards it, not through force, not through dominance, through frequency. And that is why protecting your enemy is not a luxury, it is a strategy. Now here's something that most people never think about. Everything in your life is a micro energy drain. Every identity you carry costs you something. When you show up as the boss, that requires energy. When you show up as the spouse, that requires energy. The parent, the employee, that requires energy. Every one of those costs you something. Now let's add in your to-do list, your taxes, your obligations, your unresolved conflicts, and then you start to understand why so many people are running on empty by Tuesday. You cannot afford to let difficult people drain the little bit of energy you have left. So you want to learn to set up your environment. Control what you can control and let go of what you cannot. Because holding on to resentments, replaying hard conversations, villainizing people in your mind, all of that is energy leaving your body with nothing to show for it. And here's the simplest filter I can give you for all of it. Where attention goes, energy flows. Whatever you're giving your attention to right now, you are feeding. So the question you want to ask yourself every single day is this: are you feeding the monster or are you feeding the magnificent? Because you are always feeding one of them. Choose deliberately. Here is what I want you to take away from this. Difficult people are going to be part of your life. That's not a pessimistic statement. That is just reality. The question is never whether you will encounter them. The question is whether you'll be equipped when you do. Because the person who can stay regulated under pressure, set a clear boundary without rage, and walk away with their dignity intact, that person wins. Not by fighting harder, but by being stronger on the inside. That's not something you're born with. This is something that you build, and that is exactly what we do here. We are not here to avoid pressure. We are here to embrace it. We are building strength, and we are turning snowflakes into diamonds.